I started no-tilling 40 years ago, and I had no idea what soil health was. I did it because it was more economically feasible. 25 years ago, my son was at Penn State University and worked for a big farmer close to Penn State, and he cover cropped everything right behind the silage chopper. So I went home and started cover cropping everything behind the silage chopper, and I didn't really know why, other than he did it, and if he did it, it must be right. It wasn't until about 10 years ago that I realized that the no-till and the cover crop really would grow into a soil health benefit to me.
I have been doing no-till since 1982, and then since the mid-90s, really focusing in on adding cover crops to my cropping system. 100% no-till, 100% cover crops on about 300 acres. Our primary crops that take up the most time is 3 acres of high tunnel heirloom tomatoes and about 60 acres of squash, 20 acres of pumpkins. And then I have some corn and soybeans and a bunch of small grains as well. And I'm also growing some cover crop seed to sell that to other farmers.
I've been doing no-till for a little over 30 years, and I started no-tilling because it's good for the soil and it's a lot quicker. There's less steps involved. You don't have to till the soil, you don't have to plow it. And the added benefit is that it's environmentally friendly.
Well, I don't know anything different in my lifetime, but my uncle has been doing cover crops, and especially no-till anyway, since the mid-70s. So if someone asked me to go out there and work some ground or the plow a field or do something like that, I could do it, but I wouldn't be the most efficient, or it wouldn't look real pretty when I got done because I didn't grow up doing that.
You could argue that plowing has been done for millennia, but it wasn't very aggressive up till then. When John Deere invented that plow to turn the soil over, that made it so much easier to plant, and it was able to break up the prairies in the Midwest so they could actually plant into that. And that was the reason why it became so popular so quickly. And we all heard what the damage was that was really come to light during the Dust Bowl.
There was a fellow wrote a book called The Plowman's Folly, and this was written in 1941. And Edward Faulkner talked about particle separation. And this was shortly after the Dust Bowl, so it was probably fresh in his mind. If we continue tilling our soil with our heavy equipment, we will create runoff that's going to pollute our rivers and streams to the point the cost of cleaning up will be astronomical. 41, he predicted all this. The first thing I'm going to try, we're just going to take some soil from long time no-till and some soil from my neighbor's farm and see what water does to the soil. So if the raindrops are beaten down and the water can't penetrate, it's going to start running off. And as it runs off, it's going to carry nutrients and fertilizer with it. Our heartland country out where they grow all the corn, they have about 2% cover crop, and that's why all that heartland country drains into the Mississippi, and we got this dead zone in the Gulf that's as big as the state of New Jersey. It's runoff.
For here in Lancaster County, the Chesapeake Bay awareness has been out there for 30 or more years. And so because of all the education about the bay, some of the organizations have done, like Stroud Water Research and Chesapeake Bay Foundation, a lot of those organizations have helped bring awareness. Because of that, I think is why we're ahead of a lot of other areas of adoption.
Steve, has this field always looked like this in terms of good cover?
Oh no. 1980s, late 70s, 80s, there were times when right through here we would have to close the ditches in order to harvest corn. There was ditches this deep.
From soil erosion?
Yes. And this is the fields where I started no-tilling in 1982. This organic matter has tripled, and you can't find a ditch here. And then, by the way, there's no terraces here either on this drive. So done fairly well, and it's been very aggressively cover cropped and no-tilled, of course, and this is the result. And not only did I not lose soil, I did not contribute to any problems downstream.
Trees are really important to the insects in the stream because they provide the shade to cool the water off. They have the nutrients from the leaves coming in, which is a food source for the bugs. And they also prevent like runoff going directly into the stream. There's a stonefly, mayfly. If you see these sensitive indicators there, that's a sign that water quality is good. This is Trout Run. It's located on a nature preserve. It's owned by Lancaster Conservancy. It's open to the public, and it's one of the nicer streams in Lancaster. It's got an amazing amount of nice bugs, the sensitive bugs that I was talking about. It's kind of a rare jewel, I would say, in this area right here. There's agriculture in this area, but this stream's just sort of buffered from it. Insects sort of are one of the bottom level of the food chain out here. A lot of them eat algae and microbes, and then they become a source of food for the fish and the birds and turtles and salamanders and anything else that lives in the stream.
The stream traditionally hasn't been something that us farmers have been real concerned about, because it was like, our attention is on the fields, and once it leaves the fields, it's somebody else's problem. So to say I've noticed a lot of difference, I didn't used to pay a lot of attention. Now we're paying more attention because we realize that the streams carry what we don't keep. So it's important to keep an eye on that.
So we're standing in a field that was corn this past year, and this field does not have a history of cover crops, and it also has been tilled. One of the things that is typical in a field that has not had many cover crops is the soil is more platy, comes apart like that, and it's just the structure of it's a little bit more compacted, and we don't have any living roots in there to fully support and enhance the living organisms that are in the soil. And when you walk over to a field that has had cover crops in it and not been tilled for over 25 years, it's softer. You can literally feel the difference when you walk on it. So we're going to dig in here and just take a look at what this soil looks like that has a cover crop planted. Now first you can see we have living roots. You see the white roots, you see the nice crumbly structure, look at that. And we have these beautiful white living roots here. They're providing food for the microorganisms that a lot of them that we can't even see. But that structure there, that nice structure has not been formed by tillage. That's been formed basically by plants and just leaving the soil alone.
Well, this is special to no-till planting. Okay. So it's our no-till corn planter. We have the trash movers in the front here. They will part the trash and make a way for our disc openers. All planters have these disc openers on. And then it'll open up a slot. The seed firmer will push the seed to the bottom of the slot, and then these wheels come along and close it up. We have nitrogen in the two center tanks, so we will be actually banding nitrogen as we apply the seed. We have some pop-up on the outside tanks, so we do it all in one shot.
It wasn't until about 1969 that we started with some no-till equipment. Eventually, it caught on, and of course, around here, almost everybody no-tills. It's an economic move. It takes about a third of the fuel to no-till an acre that it does conventional.
Farming is a business where the profit margins are relatively small, plus the variability of the weather is kind of a wild card that every farmer goes into the spring knowing or hoping for a good year. And usually when they say they want a good year, that's they're talking about the weather. Yeah. So tweaking anything sometimes can be either intimidating or risky. One of the things that are effective, that actually make cover crops more effective, is when you have an animal come in and ideally just eat the top third. That will stimulate the cover crop roots to grow more and actually more regrowth. So animals help stimulate the biological factory even further. Just from a sheer profitability standpoint, being diversified in another sector, a meat sector, it's a good thing.
Once the corn is planted and the corn is coming up, you can see it down the row. We'll come in at some point with Roundup or some type of glyphosate, and we will kill the cover crop. And then once that starts to die and the corn is coming up, it'll continually be green.
About 30, 40 years ago, the advent of herbicides and so forth helped terminate the existing vegetation or the weeds that were growing there. But now we're starting to rely a little less on those herbicides, a little bit more on cover crops for weed control, and through some fairly modern, I guess you'd say, techniques of rolling down cover crops and crimping cover crops, we can even reduce our herbicides even further. A farmer who wants to start no-till today, or year one, with the knowledge we collectively know today, I could say that he could use less herbicides right out the gate.
For the last spring and this spring, we didn't use any insecticide on the planter, because what the most recent research shows is that some of the insecticide that we had been using are actually killing the beneficial insects. If we don't use some of the insecticide, it keeps all the bugs there, and then some of the good insects can eat the bad insects, and we don't have to spend extra money for that, and we're not hurting anything else more than we need to.
Today you need to know the numbers and use your numbers and be more efficient and make your investments work for you. You don't want to have too many bad ideas because they'll get you in trouble.
The Tuck 1 stream flows right through my farm, and it's noted to be one of the cleanest streams in Lancaster County. So I'm kind of proud of the fact that that stream's flowing through my property. It's just something that I want to keep it as clean as I can, and I don't want to be putting things into that stream that's going to harm the life in that stream, and then more so downstream. When you get into the Chesapeake Bay, you're talking about people's livelihoods that it affects. I've talked to the fishermen there, and so having that connection was really important to be able to understand that what I do in my fields can affect their livelihood.
The soil and land it's the only earth that we're ever going to get, so we have to protect what we have. And in order to protect that, we have the different mixes of cover crops we can put in there to help build the soil. And if there's something growing there, it'll help filter the water, preserving the bay or just keeping water clean in general.
I'm not quite ready to quit yet either. Someone said to me, why don't you sell your farms and go do what you want to do? And I said, I'm doing what I want to do. Why would I want to go elsewhere?